Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's going on, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome to our Episode 2 Obi Wan Kenobi breakdown, Easter eggs, things you may have missed, and I'm going to have my full reaction / theories towards the end of the video, and, also a little bit throughout the video here as well. Let's hop right on into it. I think it's safe to say this here is, of course, going to include spoilers, so if you haven't seen Obi Wan Kenobi, either Episode 1 or Episode 2, click off the video now. One thing I very, very much liked about this episode starting right off the bat is the way that it leads right off directly from the previous episode. There doesn't really seem to be much of a time gap or anything like that, a time jump or anything. It simply kind of flows on, and it's much like a movie almost. We're on the planet of Diamo, and it's much like a lower levels of Coruscant pretty much. It's rugged, and it's dirty, it's nasty, and there's all types of trouble going on. One of the people that Kenobi runs into is actually an old clone from the Clone Wars, homeless and looking for any type of money or help, a warm meal, as he mentioned. It's very interesting to see what happens to most of the clone troopers after the Clone Wars and after the prequel trilogy, where they go, what they do, and it's something I'm very well looking forward to exploring more and more within the Star Wars franchise. In the Bad Batch, the Cassian Andor show, and now the Kenobi show, all kind of giving us a little bit of an insight on that. Kenobi also runs into a spice dealer, or a spice runner, which is essentially just a drug dealer in Star Wars terms. She gives him a thing of spice, kind of just for free, and just kind of to be nice. I guess she feels bad for him, and that comes in handy for a little bit later, as we'll see. Kenobi snoops around for any insights and clues or directions that he could easily use to find Leia, as this is his mission, is to find Leia, get her out of there, and get her back to Bail Organa. He seemingly finds another Jedi who is using his powers for the good. His name's Hajjaj, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. And, well, yes, he isn't actually a Jedi. He's rather using this as an attention gimmick and an effort to get money. However, at the same time, he does claim that he is actually helping these people, just not completely legitimately as a Jedi, because he doesn't have any Force abilities, as Kenobi exposes him for using magnets. I have a little bit of a problem with this character. However, I don't really think we're going to be seeing him all much more throughout the entirety of this series. He does play a substantial role, an amazing actor, of course, and no hate towards that or anything like that. However, I lightly mentioned it in our Episode 1 breakdown here on the channel I had released earlier on in the day. Hajjaj is a very humorous character, and while the Obi Wan Kenobi show isn't necessarily really the place for that, in my own thoughts and opinions, and many of the Star Wars fans out there actually agree with that they don't really want to see all that much humor throughout the Kenobi show. It's a serious time period, and furthermore, it's a more emotional time period, so I really want to be living within that and not be taken out of that kind of moment or focus, I guess, mode, whatever you really want to call it, from some stupid humorous kind of joke here. Anyway, Hajjaj gives Kenobi a little bit of insight of where he could go to find these cells that Leia is being held within, and he also proves himself worthy by giving a helping hand later on towards the end of the episode, we'll see. Kenobi finds himself in a laboratory here, a spice laboratory at that, as it seems, and it much reminds me of the Breaking Bad series of many of you Star Wars fans out there have already mentioned. Kenobi records up a little bit of a scene and it causes a little bit of attention and slides through a door that's being guarded back towards the prison cells. He's stopped by these two guys right here and he totally beats them up, however not using the Force. The question for this is, why isn't he using the Force? Well, there's two reasons. For one thing, he's really rusty. He hasn't really using it all that much in the previous 10 years, all in an effort to hide his Jedi powers and hide from the Inquisitors and Darth Vader as well. That leads to the second reason. He isn't using his powers in this part in case somebody else may walk in, and then they could easily tell that this here is a Jedi and inform the Inquisitors. He enters one of the cells thinking that maybe Leia potentially could be in there. However, he's bamboozled and fooled, and then he's trapped in there by those kidnappers that had kidnapped Leia in the previous episode. They give him a hard time, beat him up a little bit, and say that they're going to keep him there until Riva arrives. And this face right here may look a little bit familiar, and it looked too familiar, so I went ahead and looked it up. This here's actually one of the guitarists of the Red Hot Chili Peppers for my rock band fans out there. Very interesting and new thing that Star Wars is doing is bringing musicians into the acting world. We saw it with the Book of Boba Fett and Thundercat. Obi-Wan's able to take care of these guys pretty easily, as remember that spice thing that lady had given him towards the beginning of the episode? I'm pretty sure that he threw that down, and which created an explosion of spice in the room, knocking all these guys out, and then he went ahead and snuck his way out. Second time does the trick, as he's now found Leia's cell that she's actually being held in. She firstly, of course, makes an effort to run away, thinking that it's probably one of the kidnappers, and and on top of that, she doesn't know who Obi Wan Kenobi is, so she goes ahead, kicks him, and then goes ahead and runs away. However, Kenobi's able to grab her and explain a little bit. I've just got to say, the relationship between these two is just so incredibly wholesome. I just can't get over it. It's so cool to see the relationship between Kenobi and a young Princess Leia, and actually seeing this come to fruition and actually happen is really cool. They go off into the streets now, and in an effort to get off the world and get off the planet, make their way back to Alderaan. They switch outfits and switch disguises, going through the streets here in an effort to stay discreet and secret, of course, from the Inquisitors and other Imperials that could be roaming the streets. The Inquisitors have a meeting with the Grand Inquisitor, the fifth brother, Reva, and another Inquisitor who was also there with them. I'm not completely sure on who she is, however, we did see her in a couple other scenes there in those TV spots and trailers. The scene feels important because it's like a turning point, I feel like, with the relationship between the Inquisitors. Reva was very, I guess, hasty in that first episode and not really listening to the Grand Inquisitor or anything like that, and was doing anything necessary and all means necessary to get her hands on Kenobi or any other Jedi in the area. The other Inquisitors disagree with these tactics and actually want to use these other Jedi in an effort to find more Jedi by maybe potentially torturing them. I'm not completely sure on what they did with this episode, but the Grand Inquisitor looks different, and he looks terrifying. He looks amazing. Look at that makeup. Oh my gosh, it just looks so incredible. The Inquisitors at this point, as I had mentioned, seemingly go in their separate directions. The Grand Inquisitor and the Fifth Brother doing their thing, and Reva goes off doing her own thing in search of Kenobi by all means necessary. Reva's tactic is to essentially cause as much chaos as possible by alerting everybody in the streets who just so happen to all be bounty hunters in an effort to hunt down Obi Wan Kenobi and Leia. This was such a crazy, hectic scene, and there was so much chaos going on. I'm honestly kind of surprised that nobody really was able to get their hands on either one of these, since they were like right there in kind of plain sight for the most part. There's also a point where I feel like Leia was talking a little bit loudly in front of everybody and talking about how Kenobi's a Jedi, make me float, that type of stuff. Also, this scene right here is super wholesome, how he gets her the gloves as well. Hajjaj comes back, and now he's trying to get on the hunt here in an effort to go ahead and hunt down Leia and Kenobi, teaming up with this little kid who we'd seen at the beginning of the episode who seemingly was selling spice as well. The Fifth Brother and the Grand Inquisitor come up with a legitimate plan here, and that, of course, is to shut down all the ships going off and into the world here, of course, and to get an entirety of a garrison here on the planet in an effort to hunt down Kenobi. Reva, on the other hand, her whole idea is to cause as much chaos throughout the city by pretty much hiring and alerting all bounty hunters in the area, which just so happens to be pretty much everybody. And then, sure, it looks cool, and it probably is fun, but she goes ahead and she's just like jumping on all these rooftops throughout like the entirety of the rest of the episode, I feel like, pretty much, which we'll see in just a moment. Amongst all the chaos, Kenobi and Leia are able to go into this little alley right here and hide out for just a little bit, maybe for things to kind of settle down here. Kenobi even gets the chance to learn a little bit about Leia, which is very wholesome and very sweet as well. And yeah, I could kind of see it throughout this episode, and even a little bit in the last episode as well, how Leia really resembles a young Padme during the Clone Wars TV series animated on Cartoon Network, or maybe similar to also Anakin Skywalker as well. She's kind of just doing her thing. Even though she never actually got to meet her parents and grow up with them or anything like that, we kind of still see that resemblance, and it's something that Kenobi mentions closer towards the end of the episode as well. The alarm to one of the bounty hunters that Kenobi had knocked out in the alley previously started going off and making a lot of a noise, and of course he goes to shut it down. The image that's used is from Revenge of the Sith 10 years ago, of course, during the timeline and events here of the show here, and it's an actual legitimate like promo picture that was used, of course, for Revenge of the Sith. However, it was never actually officially used. Unfortunately, this is where some of the trouble begins with Leia here and Kenobi and their relationship. She thinks that he's the one that's, I guess, kidnapping her, and seeing that like everybody's in search for him actually freaks out and goes on this wild goose chase around the entirety of the city, which is pretty crazy. I'm really surprised that none of these guys were able to get their hands on Kenobi because he's just right there in plain sight. I don't know, it feels a little bit like a plot hole maybe. Then again, you should also realize that not everybody here is a bounty hunter or on the search or hunt here for Kenobi. Really just a vast majority for all we know, really. The whole chasing scene though eventually kind of got a little annoying. It kind of just felt drawn out, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, although that's not completely necessarily bad. It doesn't ruin the show or anything like that. Also, when Kenobi's running on the rooftops and running after Leia, he keeps shouting Leia, and it reminds me a lot of when Finn is just, like, I don't know, yelling Rey throughout the sequel trilogy, which is kind of funny. To make matters even worse, though, a gunfight breaks out onto the rooftop as two bounty hunters are hunting down Obi Wan Kenobi. The one droid is said to be for LOM from The Empire Strikes Back. However, Deborah Chow, in a recent interview I had seen, said that this isn't actually for LOM, which is kind of funny, and it's actually supposed to be a different droid. Hajjaj is loosely following around Kenobi here as he's on his wild goose chase for Leia, of course, here, and we're thinking that maybe he's going to cause some type of ruckus, although in the end he actually does help. Leia tries to make a jump, doesn't make it, falls onto some wires and is able to hold on to them for just a little bit, totally freaking out Kenobi as he starts to reach out, trying to use the Force. Now, as I had mentioned earlier on in the video, Kenobi isn't really using the Force all that much right now, simply for the two reasons of he's really rusty at using the Force, he's not the best at it, he hasn't used it in a good 10-ish years, and for the other fact that he's trying to hide his Force abilities and not to be all this commotion and attracting Inquisitors or any type of ruckus from the Empire. However, when she does fall, he's able to safely land her down onto the ground. Hajjaj is able to meet them up into the alley that Leia had fallen into as they are trying to make a grand escape here for the actual port here to get off-world, but it's all closed down from the Inquisitors and from the Empire because they're all in search of him, so he actually is able to give them a helping hand and tell them go to the cargo ships. There aren't any people up there because they're all automatic. Nice redemption for his character. This guy here, earlier, the kidnapper, he actually dies from the Grand Inquisitor. We hear it as the slicing of the blade and him screaming. The screen goes black pretty much, so I'm assuming that he's probably dead. Also, remember earlier on in the video when I said that Reva just kind of goes on this like jumping across buildings type of spree? She was still at it like this entire time. It's cool and all, it looks cool, but it's just kind of like obnoxious and it kind of feels a little silly after a couple minutes because she's doing it so much. Anyway, she eventually jumps down into an alley and finds Hajjaj, and she's able to use a Force mind trick, reading his mind much like Kylo Ren does to Poe Dameron in The Force Awakens. Using this trick, she's able to find out the location of Kenobi and Leia as they're on to the automatic cargo ships where he told them to go. Maybe it's difficult for her to do this trick, but it kind of creates a little bit of a plot hole. Why didn't she do this to Owen Lars when she was searching for Obi-Wan and the other Jedi on Tatooine in Episode 1? Kenobi and Leia are making their way over to the automatic cargo ships in an effort to get off of the planet here, and everything is going smoothly until Reva makes her appearance here onto the cargo ship. Kenobi gives her the key to make the cargo ship automatically go off, or in this case, manually go off the planet here, instead of it waiting around for a time slot, in case he gets a little caught up here with Reva. I'm not entirely sure on where these cargo ships are exactly headed, or if it's going to bring her back to Alderaan, or maybe somewhere else, maybe the cargo's destination, so it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to show up here in the next episode. This here is the big reveal, and there's a lot of mixed feelings as of right now from Star Wars fans, what they feel about this, what they think about this. Nonetheless, it has to happen at some point. Mind you, during this 10-year time period, Kenobi thinks that Anakin is dead. He doesn't know that Darth Vader is Anakin, and he doesn't really all that much even know about Darth Vader and his presence within the galaxy. Reva reveals to Kenobi that Anakin Skywalker is indeed alive and is actually Darth Vader. The shocking truth, and I think that his facial expressions tell us it all, and it gives us that, I guess, what he's feeling and how we're feeling type of kind of feeling, and it makes you feel speechless. Before she's able to continue, and now that the truth is out here, in an effort to begin to draw Kenobi out, the Grand Inquisitor steps into the scene, telling her to stop, and I'm really oddly confused by this motive. Don't you want Kenobi? Isn't your job to kill off Jedi? And this kind of, I guess, recycles back to the idea that they could use Kenobi in an effort to find other Jedi. However, I will say, the question is proposed, is it really worth all that hassle to keep Kenobi alive when it's such a hard job to capture him? I mean, you guys have been hunting him and looking for him for the past 10 years. Why wouldn't you just go ahead and do it? It kind of raises those questions. Maybe the Grand Inquisitor still has too much good in him. He was previously a temple guard of the Jedi Temple, so maybe there's still good in him and he doesn't really see all the reason to kill off one of his Jedi old friends. However, Reva does, as she ignites her lightsaber into the Grand Inquisitor, stabbing him straight into the stomach, seemingly killing him. This is such a huge shocker. The events of the Obi Wan Kenobi show take place before the events of Star Wars Rebels, and during the first season of Star Wars Rebels, the Grand Inquisitor is such a key player. Does this make Star Wars Rebels Legends? I'll tell you guys right now, I don't believe that this makes Star Wars Rebels Legends, and I believe that the Grand Inquisitor is perfectly fine. He's still alive. There's back-to-tanks, there's cybernetic upgrades you can get, of course, here. All I really need to say is that Darth Maul was cut in half and still lived, and that Palpatine still lived after being thrown down a huge tunnel. However, what I will be doing is covering this in a separate video, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Now, Kenobi's able to make a run for it and board the ship with Leia. However, mentally, he's just not there. He's in complete, utter shock. Anakin Skywalker, his best friend, his brother, his Padawan, his failed Padawan, is still alive, and furthermore is one of the most feared presences in the galaxy. Darth Vader is officially revealed and introduced into the Obi Wan Kenobi show. Hayden Christensen, of course, reprising his role. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have been waiting for. I'm still not over it. I'm flabbergasted by it. You guys already know it. I've seen... my reaction video has been out. Just wow. The performance of Ian McGregor alone, it just says it all. He just stands there staring blankly in utter shock, and then simply whispers the word to himself, Anakin, and it cuts to Darth Vader. This is amazing. There's no better other way to introduce something like this, especially when it's already been confirmed when the show was first announced nearly 2 years ago from Kathleen Kennedy herself, Lucasfilm's president, that Darth Vader and Obi Wan Kenobi will be fighting in the show. For as of right now, the rumors / leaks say that these characters are going to be fighting twice throughout this show. Speaking of leaks and rumors, it's something that we have been covering here off and on the channel for the last couple of months now at this point in time, and one of those most memorable leaks I remember out there that just made this such a more insane moment, I feel like, for me and my viewing ship, is that this was the leak, is that somebody tells Obi-Wan that Anakin is still alive, and we simply cut to the screen of Anakin / Vader opening up his eyes inside of a back-to-tank and awakening. It is just, it's literally ripped straight from that leak, and it's so cool to see that these leaks come to true and come to fruition. Same thing with Spider-Man No Way Home and all that hype going on as well over in the Marvel community. It goes without saying that this here is an easily 1,000 out of 10 episode. This was phenomenal and amazing, and everything that we've been waiting for and looking forward to here in the Star Wars franchise and for the Obi Wan Kenobi show. From here, I would believe that Leia, of course, is going to be dropped back off in Alderaan. Kenobi's going to return to Tatooine, and from there, essentially, a young Luke Skywalker is going to pick up that role that Leia was playing, where Kenobi and a young Luke Skywalker are now going to team up for something. As I had mentioned for our first episode breakdown here, this show is so amazing. It is so awesome, furthermore, to experience this thing with you. Nearly 10,000 of you subscribers and nearly 30,000 of you followers over on our Instagram. I can't thank you guys enough for all of the love and support that I just get to sit here and totally geek out about Star Wars. Is so fun and so amazing to do with you guys, so thank you guys so much. Of course, I want to know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think about episode 2, some of your theories, speculations, hopes and dreams to see throughout the rest of the series here, and also for episode 3. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think. Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it, as it is the channel, and check out Instagram on Unofficial Star Wars for more Star Wars and content, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. As always, may the Force be with you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.